Part 45. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 444. Once again taking control of the original core of a living planet, a node leading to the original space of the world, the speed of spiritual energy spreading outwards has been strengthened again. Google search reading. It would only take a dozen or dozens of days to completely cover a star system. And this is still in one direction. In other directions, star systems will be flooded at similar speeds. Gradually, more and more living planets have been discovered, and the speed of the spread of spiritual energy in the world has naturally increased. And there are many half-step Hedeo and the existence of Hedeo gods, constantly crossing the starry sky, searching for life planets one after another. Today's pan-human alliance is no longer thinking hard about transforming the planet. Instead, it is constantly building star teleportation arrays to bring the living planets into the alliance's territory. It can be said that today's pan-human alliance is really vast and rich in resources, except that Blue Star, as the main star of mankind, still has a large population. Like other planets, the population is only hundreds of millions at most. Even less, only 1 or 2 million. Although it sounds like a lot, if you put it on a planet, it would be really sparsely populated. Therefore, several large cities are basically built on those planets for human life. As for other places, they are all pristine and primitive scenery, used for human experience and play. And in such an atmosphere, a planet with a high-level intelligent civilization appeared so quietly within the coverage of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Beep. 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 Wow wow. Woo wow. Woo wow. Urgent alarms rang through the external defense center of this advanced civilization. In an instant, the entire defense center personnel became alert and busy. What's going on? What happened? Quick, quick, quick. Report the source of the alarm quickly. Sir, sir. An unknown energy reaction suddenly appeared on our planet. What kind of energy reaction? Have you found the source? A wrinkled, hunched, brown-skinned humanoid creature sat on a silver-white chair full of futuristic technology and asked with a serious expression. Sorry, Marshal. This is a kind of energy that the Empire has never discovered. As for the source, they seem to come from outer space. TNY. Is the planetary defense force field developed by the Imperial Academy of Sciences just for free? Why isn't this energy intercepted outside the planet? Hasn't this energy been discovered on the outer planet and the defensive force field has been activated to intercept it? Sitting solemnly, the top military officer of the defense center, a marshal of the Empire, immediately slapped the desk in front of him, frowned and asked loudly. You know, this is unknown energy that comes suddenly from outer space. Who knows if it is dangerous? Is it another attack from aliens? If this is the case, then the Empire will be completely destroyed, and absolutely no one will be able to survive. Because, as one of the strongest defense locations in the Empire, their external defense center has been pervaded by that unknown energy. In other words, there is no safe place on the entire planet anymore. Whether you live or die does not all depend on people's mood. According to the research and speculation of the Imperial General Staff, if those alien civilizations discover them, they will have a high probability of directly attacking them. And if the unknown energy that suddenly appears now is really the work of aliens, then the Empire will have completely lost before it can fight back. Facing the Marshal's inquiry, the people below naturally did not dare to neglect, and quickly answered with a wry smile. The defensive force field is naturally turned on. Although this energy is extremely fast. But when it appears outside the galaxy, we have already noticed it. Such a far distance is enough for us to activate the defensive force field. It's a pity that this unknown energy spread so fast that we only had time to activate the defensive force field, and there was no time to conduct other research or take other countermeasures. Moreover, the defensive force field has no resistance at all to that energy, as if it does not exist and is not affected by any force, it can easily penetrate the planet's defense force field. And in just a few dozen breaths, it has completely flooded our planet. According to the latest observations, this unknown energy is almost covering the entire galaxy. The Imperial Marshal sitting at the top listened to the reports and explanations of his men, and his face became increasingly ugly. However, when he heard the last part, his expression changed slightly. Since this unknown energy has completely encompassed them, it has not had any impact on them. Does this mean that this unknown energy is not the work of aliens, but an unknown natural cosmic phenomenon? However, he was a little hesitant. Who knew if these aliens had other conspiracies? Has it been detected? What harm does it have to living organisms? After pondering for a moment, he asked again. No harm has been found yet. Time is really too fast. From the time we discover this unknown energy to the time it floods our planet and almost completely covers this planetary system, it will take less than a moment. We simply don't have time to do more in-depth research. The subordinate shook his head and said with a wry smile. Then take the time to research and see where this energy comes from. Is there any harm in it? One day later, the entire empire's top officials gathered together to discuss the unknown energy with solemn expressions. According to the research of the Imperial Academy of Sciences, the sudden appearance of unknown energy does no harm to living things, and even has great benefits. Strengthen the strength of body cells, enhance cell activity, repair body damage, extend the life of body cells, etc. It can even restore the number of cell divisions to a certain extent. The first person to speak was the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences. After hearing his words, everyone else straightened their bodies instantly and looked at him with bright eyes. You said you can restore the number of cell divisions. Are you sure? Although the Empire's technology is extremely advanced, there is no need to say more about this planet. Even other planets in the galaxy also have many spaceships traveling to collect minerals, transport materials, goods, etc. The Empire has even developed body-strengthening potions, recovery potions, and even potions that slightly extend lifespan. However, a drug to restore the number of cell divisions has never been successfully developed. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 445. The high-ranking officials of the Empire did not expect that the sudden appearance of unknown energy could restore the number of cell divisions. Although they are not researchers at the Imperial Academy of Sciences, this does not mean that they know nothing about Imperial technology. What does it mean to restore the number of cell divisions? Everyone here knows it very well. That represents the possibility of immortality and even eternal life. How can they not be extremely excited? That unknown energy can indeed restore the number of cell divisions. However, this recovery speed is extremely slow, far less than the speed of cell division. Unless a large amount of this energy can be collected and the entire body is immersed in it, will it be possible to catch up with the speed of cell division? However, with the current concentration of that energy, it is very difficult to collect enough energy. Even if it is just for one person, it is enough for us to collect it for decades. Not to mention, nowadays, we don't even have the methods to collect this energy or the equipment to store it. Unless we can analyze its composition principles and carry out large-scale manufacturing. Otherwise. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences nodded firmly, but at the end, he shook his head and talked about its shortcomings. I believe that with our current technology, we should be able to quickly analyze its structural principles. After listening to the explanation of the Dean of the Academy of Sciences, some people couldn't help but look at him expectantly and said, "Immortality is a desire and pursuit that every intelligent life has. Well, the kind of exception that makes you want to die. Anyway, none of the high-ranking officials of the Empire here want to die. It's difficult, This is a completely new energy substance that we've never seen before. Moreover, we used the Empire's top scanning and analysis equipment, but even its outermost basic structure was unable to be analyzed. Don't even know what kind of existence it is. Maybe thousands of years from now, there will be the science and technology to analyze it. But now, it is definitely not possible. Even with its various functions, we have also made various inferences based on its reactions with living things. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences naturally sees everyone's expectations. However, he could only sigh secretly and shake his head in affirmation, directly dispelling everyone's hopes. Oh, that's such a pity. Looking at the determined expression of the Dean of the Academy of Sciences, everyone also looked dim and sighed secretly. But immediately, everyone cheered up again, which finally gave everyone a glimmer of hope. With the Empire's current technology, it is still possible to let them live for several hundred more years. Maybe by that time, technology will have developed, or there will be other opportunities and discoveries. When everyone secretly shook their heads to get rid of all the distracting thoughts in their minds, they asked again. So, is there anything else? Yes, that unknown energy can not only restore the number of cell divisions to a certain extent. Moreover, it is extremely susceptible to the influence of spiritual forces. The president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences, as he continued speaking, took out a helmet and put it directly on his head. Then, he stretched out his palm and focused his attention on it. Next, a scene occurred that surprised many of the Empire's top officials. I saw a little light appearing in the hands of the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences. Immediately afterwards, the light began to gradually grow larger, and finally turned into an egg-sized ball of light, floating quietly in his palm, with a soft halo emitting. At this moment, the alarm in the conference room suddenly sounded. Beep beep beep. Alarm. There is a high-energy reaction in the conference room. Please evacuate the relevant personnel immediately. Please evacuate the relevant personnel immediately. The sudden sound of the alarm made the senior officials of the Empire, who were surprised that the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences was able to gather energy balls with their bare hands, suddenly come back to their senses. Looking at the soldiers who suddenly rushed in, the Emperor turned off the alarm directly, and then waved his hand, indicating that they should go out first and ignore what was going on here. The soldiers who rushed in looked at the energy ball in the hands of the Imperial Academy of Sciences, then at the other senior officials of the Empire, as well as the Emperor sitting at the head, and then exited the conference room in surprise and a little dazed. Even when he returned to his post, he was still confused. Is the Empire's technology already so advanced? He is actually able to gather high energy with his bare hands. As an elite soldier of the Empire, the first time he entered the conference room, he discovered the source of the high energy reaction. It was none other than the ball of light in the hands of the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences. After the soldier exited the conference room, this man looked at the Dean of the Academy of Sciences again. Yes, this is the phenomenon after the unknown energy is gathered together under the influence of mental power. But, didn't you say that this energy is difficult to collect? Can't you just put on that helmet and collect that energy now? If we make a lot of helmets, does that mean we can harvest a lot of that energy? It's different. The ball of energy I condensed doesn't actually gather much of that energy. Although I haven't studied the principle yet, I can vaguely feel that in the process of gathering that energy, a large amount of energy will appear out of thin air. I suspect that when this energy is gathered, it will draw energy from other dimensions. After adding this extra energy out of thin air, the energy ball in my hand lost its original characteristics and became extremely destructive. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences first shook his head and rejected everyone's idea, and then explained slightly. And at the last moment, the Dean of the Academy of Sciences used his own mental power to control the energy in the energy light group, slowly dissipating it. When it was only the size of a needle's eye, the Dean of the Academy of Sciences pressed it against the table in front of him. Boom! With a loud noise, the extremely strong alloy tabletop in front of him suddenly collapsed and shattered. This. Everyone who watched the scene was stunned for a while. They looked at the thin Dean of the Academy of Sciences, and then looked at the broken and collapsed alloy table in front of him. They were all stunned and speechless for a moment. When the soldiers guarding outside the conference room rushed in again, everyone came back to their senses. After waving his hand again to signal the soldiers to exit, the Emperor looked at the Dean of the Academy of Sciences. Is this what you call extremely destructive? This is indeed extremely destructive. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 446. In fact, it was not only the Emperor who expressed such emotion, but the rest of the people were also not much better, and were all extremely shocked and emotional. Google search reading. Although this cannot restore the number of cell divisions, it can be used as a powerful weapon. After the military minister of the Empire's External Defense Center came to his senses, his eyes immediately shone and he stared directly at the Dean of the Academy of Sciences. Upon hearing the military minister's words, the Emperor and other ministers' eyes lit up and they nodded excitedly. With the specialness of the unknown energy, just a little bit of it can explode with such great power. If it could be made into a weapon, it would not only be extremely powerful, but also very flexible and changeable. No matter where it is used, it can be used. Daily patrols, personal versions for small-scale applications, large-scale battles on large spaceships, gathering the power of everyone, mass versions for strategic strikes, etc. It's possible, but we haven't found out its origin clearly. I think we should wait for some time and do some more research on it. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences pondered for a moment, then spoke. After hearing what the Dean of the Academy of Sciences said, everyone felt like a bucket of cold water was poured over their heads. Only then did they remember that the source of this unknown energy and its specific situation were unclear. How can everyone listen to it anymore? After it can restore the number of cell divisions, it becomes a little forgetful? After everyone calmed down, the Emperor took the lead and asked. Then do you have any clues? There are some clues, based on the analysis of data transmitted by our detectors distributed within the galaxy. The diffusion speed of this unknown energy is not static, but is constantly accelerating. Especially after covering a planet, it will get a slight improvement. And its source should be here. As he spoke, the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences tapped his wrist lightly, and immediately a three-dimensional projection of the starry sky appeared in front of him. I saw him reaching out to one of these points, and then he said, "This is our planet, and the direction of the unknown planet is here." His fingers slid and drew a straight line in the direction where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth spreads, and then he continued. According to us, for this unknown energy diffusion speed, and according to the latest research, we explore the observation data of this energy instrument, and then analyze it through our super-large intelligent optical brain. It should originate from near this galaxy. His finger continued to slide, drawing a straight line in the starry sky projection in front of him, and finally pointed at a certain galaxy. Here. Is this not a natural phenomenon in the universe, but really man-made? Everyone stood up and looked at the three-dimensional projection of the universe model, all muttering in low voices with ugly faces. I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it's not. However, according to the analysis of our Academy of Sciences, based on the distribution of the planets there, it is indeed very possible for life to be born, especially this planet. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences moved his finger, and a planet in that galaxy quickly enlarged. Although the specific situation cannot be seen, it can be roughly seen that this planet is blue and green. Seeing this, everyone still didn't understand that this should be a living planet, and their expressions instantly became even more ugly. If this spreading unknown energy is caused by man-made causes, the consequences will be serious. And if UN men, or other Hedeo or gods, appear here, they will find that the planet they are referring to is a life planet recently covered by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and controlled by UN men. At this moment, a report sounded outside the conference room. Report. Come in. There was a slight pause in the discussion among the people present, and the emperor returned to his throne and spoke in a majestic tone. Immediately, the door of the conference room opened quietly, and a soldier quickly entered, came to the middle of the crowd, and saluted the emperor. Okay, come back. What's the matter? Tell me. Your Majesty, there has been a riot among the people. As soon as these words came out, before the soldier finished speaking, the emperor had already stood up, stared at the soldiers below, and asked word for word. What did you say? Since the empire unified the planet and began to march into the starry sky, although there have been some occasional turmoils, there have been none that can be called riots. And now, during his term of office, something like this happened. Does that mean that he is not a qualified emperor? In this case, his face will naturally not look good, and his tone will be cold and solemn. In just a moment, the soldiers below were sweating. However, he still tried his best to continue speaking in a relatively calm tone. Your Majesty, there is a riot among the people. Breathe. What's going on? Tell me in detail. After narrowing his eyes and taking a deep breath, the emperor suppressed the anger in his heart and regained his composure. Your Majesty, some people claim to have seen the gods, and they also say that this unknown energy, called the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, is the source of the power of the gods. Brown earth has become a place favored by the gods. A new god will surely be born. We call on everyone to believe in the gods and wait for the coming of the new god. Although this is a cult, it seems nothing if it's just like this, right? After listening to what the soldier said, everyone frowned. Because the empire is rich in material resources and does not need to worry about life, many people feel empty inside, and it is easy to breed various cults. The empire will deal with a batch every few years. However, everyone did not directly scold, but quietly watched the soldier below, waiting for him to continue. They believe that there must be a follow-up to this matter. Otherwise, just doing something is not enough to report here. Sure enough. When the city guards wanted to arrest them, those people openly refused to arrest them, claiming that they were servants of God and people favored by God, and the city guards had no right to arrest them. Moreover, they also used some magical means to injure the city guards who arrested them. Moreover, because of these means, they gathered a lot of people and started a large-scale worship ceremony, and those city guards were used as sacrifices by them. Huh? Bold. The emperor of the empire heard this and slapped the armrest of the chair and shouted angrily. What's the situation? Someone asked. Many city guards were killed by them and sacrificed to the so-called gods. Moreover, they also attacked the local government offices of the empire, killed the local governors, and announced that they were people favored by God and would establish the church kingdom of God on earth. Asshole. Send troops to suppress them immediately. This immediately aroused the anger of everyone present, and the military minister stood up and roared loudly. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 447. This civilized planet, which had already begun to step into the starry sky, began to become chaotic. Google search reading. From time to time, evil god churches are born, claiming that they have seen gods and want to reorganize the order of the world on behalf of gods. And these people who claim to have seen gods began to undergo distortions. Their beautiful brown skin and deep wrinkles began to slowly become lighter and smoother, and their body shapes were no longer rickety, but became much taller. Ordinary people are tall and straight. However, some people are even more physically alienated, their skin color becomes dark, and tentacles extend from their bodies. They claimed that what they saw was the real God, which was a powerful existence crawling on the endless dimensions of time and space and composed of countless weird and twisted tentacles. Some people claimed that what they saw was a vast quagmire of flesh and blood, blooming with endless holy red light, which was the origin and destination of all living beings. In addition to these, there are many images of gods that are either sacred or weird. As for their current image, the image of their gods is a bit weird and evil. They don't think so, they think it is the manifestation of some kind of truth, and they are now moving closer to gods and truth. In addition to these gods, many strange beings were born on the planet, which were ethereal and similar to energy bodies. Some had their own consciousness, while others were floating around unconsciously. Even more powerful ones will attack living beings, swallowing their blood and vitality, causing them to turn into mummies. But in a place that no one could detect or perceive, Yuan Meng touched his nose speechlessly, then touched his long hanging hair, and couldn't help but sigh. Sure enough, a living planet with intelligent life is a trouble. When I entered the dimension of rules, I accidentally leaked some power aura, and it actually caused such a big thing. And feeling the chaotic thoughts lingering around him across the barriers of time and space, Yuan Meng felt even more uncomfortable. I am not some random god, let alone one of those twisted and weird evil gods. Moreover, he has no need for these messy thoughts similar to belief, and he has no intention of absorbing them. It is also because Yuan Meng's essence is too high, even if some power aura is leaked, it will affect many people. And because of differences in perception and carrying capacity, they cannot see the whole of themselves. They can only perceive and see a certain part of themselves, and then regard it as all of themselves. Aren't the hairs all twisted and squirming evil spirits? Even the flesh and blood in the body is a quagmire of flesh and blood, isn't it? Yuan Meng shook his head dumbfounded, but he also made up his mind to be more careful in the future. He must completely restrain his power and never cause such an inadvertent thing again. Moreover, the mess on this planet also needs to be cleaned up. However, it doesn't mean that you have to take action yourself. Yuan Meng's mind turned, and with a swipe of his hand, he swept the complicated thoughts surrounding him to the shallow level of rules, and then looked at somewhere in the starry sky. The next moment, Yuan Meng stretched out his hand and an invisible wave of rules swept across, quickly spreading to the entire rule dimension. And instantly broke through the dimensional barrier, appeared in reality, and swept towards the starry sky. And somewhere in the starry sky, Zhou Mu, who had just finished his training, suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction where the rule fluctuations came from. This? A new life planet. Zhou Mu's heart fluctuated slightly, but he soon calmed down. In fact, during this period of time, the Pan-Human Alliance has discovered too many life planets. However, there seemed to be something different this time. Zhou Mu felt thoughtfully as he carefully felt the fluctuations in the rules. It seems that this living planet should have something special. Thinking of this, Zhou Mu left the place where he had practiced during this period. Because the diffusion speed of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is getting faster and faster, everyone is no longer chasing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to practice. Instead, after arriving at a boundary, you will engage in a period of practice and enlightenment. After the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has been basically integrated with the local environment, and there is no longer a conflict with the rules, they will come out again, sense the boundary of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth again, and directly tear apart the space and cross the galaxy. Of course, if a living planet appears, it will attract people to come. Although I don't know why, the reaction of the living planet to the aura of heaven and earth is more violent, and the time for the rules to appear is clearer and longer, which naturally attracts more people. Zhou sensed the direction of the regular fluctuations and directly tore the space apart, stepping into it with one step. When it reappeared, it had already arrived outside a star system. This is it. Zhou whispered to himself that the source of the regular fluctuations he felt was within this galaxy. But just when he was about to tear open the space again and enter this galaxy, he suddenly made a sound of surprise. Zhou suddenly turned his head and looked at the meteorite belt on one side, then stretched out his hand to grab it, and immediately there was an inconspicuous meteorite, which was quickly photographed. This is a technological creation. Zhou looked at the meteorite in his hand and murmured in a low voice. Although the meteorite in his hand was well disguised, Zhou still noticed the difference with just one glance. What's more, the feeling of being watched has been constantly coming from this inconspicuous little thing in his hand. Don't you know that when you stare into the abyss is also staring at you? It's the same for gods. Zhou sighed with a smile, blinked his eyes slightly, and the scene in front of him changed rapidly as the stars flowed. It was no longer the boundless starry sky, nor the detector disguised as a meteorite, but a hall full of technology. The wrinkled, brown-skinned, hunched humanoids were operating something quickly in front of the projections. And more people were surrounding a projection. And the projection showed Zhou's figure. Just when everyone was surrounding Zhou's figure, discussing why life forms can survive in space without the help of any equipment, the three-dimensional projection of Zhou, which was still outside the galaxy and was transmitted only through the observation equipment, suddenly turned around and grabbed the detector with just a light hand. Then, Zhou lowered his head slightly, his eyes were deep, and he seemed to be smiling, and he muttered a sentence. When you stare into the abyss is also staring at you. Everyone was very sure that they had never heard of this language. However, the moment everyone heard this sentence, they already understood the meaning. God. It turns out that there are really gods in this world. Looking at Zhou's projection, someone immediately whispered. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 448. What kind of God is it? It's just an advanced being that can survive in the starry sky. What's all the fuss about? Haven't we already imagined that there are such life forms in the universe? Seeing that everyone was looking downcast, the military minister who had just walked in couldn't help but scolded them coldly. Google search reading. This. Even so, to us, what is the difference between them and gods? The dean of the Academy of Sciences beside him couldn't help but sigh with emotion when he looked at the figure who had withdrawn his gaze. At the same time, his eyes were bright and filled with a desire to discover. When the military minister heard this, he couldn't help but tilt his head slightly and glare at him. You talk a lot, don't I know? Aren't I trying to cheer these people up by seeing how frustrated they are? Good guy, you're just trying to break things up. However, his expression was clearly revealing. The dean of the Academy of Sciences did not look at him at all. He kept staring at the person's projection, and the look of surprise in his eyes became more and more serious. Hey! Let me ask you, look at him, does he look like those evil cultists? Finally, the dean of the Academy of Sciences rubbed his body against the military minister beside him and said with some uncertainty. Huh? Hey! They are quite similar. However, those evil God believers are still far away from the advanced life in front of them. The Minister of Military Affairs finally came back to his senses, looked at the three-dimensional projection in front of him, and murmured. After thinking for a moment, the Dean of the Academy of Sciences spoke again. That means that the God seen by those evil God believers is him? Or, is he a member of his higher-level life form? After hearing this, the military minister's face suddenly became extremely ugly. If it is the latter, then it means that there are already advanced beings that have descended on the brown Earth star along with the unknown energy. but all their monitoring equipment found no trace of him. Thinking about those deformed tribesmen, when the military minister looked at the projection, his eyes gradually became evil. They are still discussing here whether the so-called use of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is a conspiracy of aliens. However, but it turns out that the alien attacks have already arrived. Is there any need to discuss this? Mobilize the starry sky defense weapons on the borders of the galaxy to lock me in on that advanced being, and then send warships to drive him away from our galaxy. The military minister clenched his fists and ordered fiercely. Isn't it a little bad? After all, they are advanced beings that can cross the starry sky, and we don't know their number and specific energy levels yet. What's more, he didn't take the initiative to attack. Moreover, looking at the other party's current behavior, he does not seem to be a heinous being, but rather has some good intentions. Otherwise, since the other party can see us across the starry sky, it is inevitable that they will not have the means to attack across the starry sky. If he had malicious intentions, how could we not directly attack or make other violent reactions when we observed him so blatantly? We attack directly like this just in case. The Dean of the Academy of Sciences on the side said slightly worriedly. No chance. What's more, it's not that they haven't attacked, their attack has already begun. Think about our deformed tribesmen. The Minister of Military Affairs said firmly, without even a moment's hesitation. He directly rejected the words of the Dean of the Academy of Sciences. This is alas. After listening to what the military minister said, the President of the Academy of Sciences thought of the information reported, the tragedies, the extremely ugly, evil, and weird distortions, and immediately became speechless. In the end, he could only let out a long sigh, no talk again. I just hope things won't be too bad. But their conversations and actions were all noticed by Zhou. It turns out that other gods have already arrived in the home planet of this civilization? Or are they just passing by accidentally? Zhou murmured softly. However, regardless of whether other gods came, or whether he caused harm to the civilization. However, this is not a reason for them to threaten themselves. Zhou somewhat understood their behavior, but would never accept it. Gradually, Zhou's eyes became sharp, a surge of divine power gradually rose, and he looked up at the galaxy in front of him. Divine thoughts swept out in an instant, locking the civilization in reverse and all the starry sky facilities arranged in the starry sky, including interstellar battleships and interstellar weapons. Zhou didn't even spare those ordinary facilities. Ordinary technological weapons do not involve rules. How can such a fragile civilization have the confidence to show its teeth to me? Force. Zhou smiled coldly, stretched out his hand towards the void, a mysterious light flashed away, and an invisible regular wave spread instantly. In just a moment, the invisible regular fluctuations had swept across the entire galaxy in front of them. In an instant, the countless interstellar weapons and star-destroying weapons, including ordinary starry sky and scientific research equipment, all suddenly collapsed toward the center under an inexplicable force, and were eventually destroyed. But those countless interstellar battleships, under the influence of that inexplicable force, instantly disintegrated and turned into space junk all over the sky, leaving only the core manned space. Well, Zhou was still very merciful. He did not decompose the aliens or crush them into meatballs, but gave them a chance to survive. As for whether they can survive in the end, it depends on their luck. Well, after all, this alien civilization only wanted to threaten him to leave, and did not really want to launch an attack. Well, don't look at the alien military minister, his tough style is obvious when he speaks. But in fact, there is a lot of room for maneuver in his words. After all, he just locked it, but did not really mean to attack. He just wanted to show his force and make that higher life fear. Of course, if he could leave, it would be better. Even if he can't, he should be cautious and will not attack them casually. Unfortunately, he obviously miscalculated. His behavior not only failed to deter Zhou from fearing him, but angered Zhou. Their countless interstellar weapons, let alone gods like Zhou, just a little bit of rule power is enough to destroy everything they have. Even if it is just a cultivator in the fifth realm of immortality, it is enough to easily destroy them. Fortunately, the military minister did not really want to attack. Otherwise, let alone other things, at least those aliens who wanted to attack him and had bad intentions towards him would definitely not survive. Unlike now, it is just destroying some interstellar facilities outside the planet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 449. After destroying this alien civilization, all interstellar weapons, interstellar battleships, and those starry sky facilities, Zhou looked at the hall again. He wanted to teach the military minister a little more lesson, so that he would know that gods cannot be deceived. However, the scene that appeared in front of him was a scene that shocked him. I saw that in the hall full of technology, there were no aliens anymore, but they had all turned into monsters with deformed bodies. At the same time, there are many aliens who are gradually transforming into human bodies. At this time, they were all kneeling and praying loudly and devoutly towards his projection. Is this grass? I actually forgot about this. Zhou slapped his forehead and violently restrained the power fluctuations emanating from his body. He felt regretful in his heart. He had just destroyed the interstellar facilities of this civilization, but he had forgotten to restrain the divine power fluctuations. After being transmitted back through this monitoring equipment, the aliens who had been watching them were actually infected by divine power and turned into a group of deformed monsters and some descendants of gods. Then this is nothing but revenge. The scene in the hall where the Minister of Military Affairs was located made Zhou have no intention of taking action again. Well, judging from this point alone, the purpose of the Minister of Military Affairs has been achieved, and Zhou will indeed not take action casually anymore. I just don't know if this is what the Minister of Military Affairs wants. All interstellar facilities, interstellar battleships, interstellar weapons, including countless monitoring satellites, etc., were all destroyed by Zhou. Zhou took another step forward, with immeasurable divine light blooming all over his body, and a golden halo formed by faint merit was projected behind his head. Those are some of the humanitarian merits he has gained over the years by helping the development and construction of human civilization and expanding territories. However, in the development of human civilization so far, it has not encountered any life or civilization that is evenly matched or even threatened. It can be said that it has been a smooth journey, which is why those of them who grew up in the first place helped the development of some meta-human alliances in the beginning. But after that, it really doesn't help much. At most, it is just to establish an interstellar teleportation array when a living planet is discovered. Therefore, it is naturally impossible for them to obtain much humanitarian merit. Being able to form a faint halo of merit is due to his accumulation over the years, and the reason why he has never used merit to understand the rules and practice. Well, he would never admit it. He wanted to keep his merits and show off in front of those alien beings. It's a pity that until now, he has never seen even an intelligent alien life. But now, we have finally encountered an intelligent alien civilization. Moreover, it is an alien civilization that has been able to sail within this galaxy. Zhou will not let go of this opportunity. He wants to use his most glorious and majestic side to leave the deepest impression on this alien civilization and conquer the civilization. In just a moment, Zhou had arrived outside the brown Earth star. The overwhelming divine light poured down from the sky and enveloped the entire brown Earth star in an instant. The brilliance of the divine power bloomed by the gods does not necessarily follow the law of linear propagation. Therefore, at this moment, all the brown earth stars could see the figure standing in the sky as long as they raised their heads. God, God, God. Everyone who saw all this could not help but murmur in a low voice. As for those brown earth stars who had been bewitched and joined various churches, they prostrated themselves on the ground and prayed devoutly. However, there are some exceptions. One of them is naturally the emperor and his ministers. They knew that because of this so-called God, the empire's military ministers, the president of the Imperial Academy of Sciences, and everyone in that hall were all transformed into ugly monsters. They were naturally wary of it. Of course, this is also related to the fact that the power Zhou released this time does not contain the power of rules. In other words, don't look at Zhou's shocking momentum. However, those are just some sound and light effects, and do not contain much power, especially his fundamental power of rules. Therefore, the emperor of the empire and many ministers who knew the inside story were still able to maintain their own sanity and feel conflicted. Otherwise, within the entire brown earth star, everyone enveloped by the divine light will be alienated and imbued with Zhou's dependence. Except for the emperor and the ministers. There are also some people who resist and reject. In other words, they are some deformed monsters and dependents. And these are naturally distorted existences affected by Yuan Meng's power. Because their power comes from Yuan Meng, they naturally resist and reject Zhou, another god. In their view, Zhou was stealing the glory of the gods in their hearts. He was an evil god and an alien. O God! The evil god from outside the sky has come and is stealing your glory. Your people beg you to send down your power to punish this thief. Many people who were imprisoned or still on the move, many who were affected by Yuan Meng's power, looked at Zhou's figure in the sky and couldn't help but pray devoutly. Pray to their gods to send down grace and power to punish the evil god in their hearts who stole the glory of the gods. Unfortunately, Yuan Meng did not respond. He did not care about the praise or belief of others. No matter who or what exists, as long as they are still in this world, or as long as they are still in his system, they will definitely contribute to him. Why does he need the belief of others? Moreover, Yuan Meng at this time could not accept their prayers. Because Yuan Meng has entered the origin core of this planet. However, because this planet has already given birth to intelligent civilization, their feedback on the origin core of the planet is much stronger than other planets. Although due to the overall environment of the universe, it is impossible to give birth to the existence of heaven, humanity, and planetary will. However, his resistance and rejection of foreign existence is far greater than that of other planets. But Yuan Meng today is far from being comparable to the past. Although the core origin of this planet resists very fiercely. However, facing the force of Yuan Meng's countless star projections, he could only resist for dozens of breaths. And this is why Yuan Meng tried to restrain his power, fearing that he would explode it directly. Otherwise, let alone the power of the chaos, just the power of the planets he controlled in the blue star world. It still only takes a thought to instantly crush the brown earth star, including its core origin. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 450. After entering the original core of brown earth star, Yuan Meng's power had quickly infected it and gradually controlled it in just a moment. Immediately, a top-down force spread silently down from the original core dimension along the endless rules that were like a net, infecting and changing all the rules wherever it passed. And when it reached the outermost layer of the rule level, the bottom shallow rule level, a slight shock spread instantly, spreading throughout the entire rule dimension in an instant, connecting it into a whole. It is constantly making fine adjustments to make it operate more reasonably and more in line with Yuan Meng's power. At the same time, immeasurable spiritual energy began to breed, suddenly breaking through the dimensional barrier between the rules and the real dimension, permeating the entire brown earth star, and constantly radiating outward. Is this resurrection of spiritual energy? I really caught up with a good time. Feeling the changes in the brown Earth star and the frenzy of spiritual energy rushing towards his face, Zhou, standing in the starry sky, couldn't help but feel extremely happy. They chased the boundaries of spiritual energy diffusion, and the life planets they discovered were basically those that they discovered after the spiritual energy revived. And later, after they reached the boundary where the spiritual energy spread, they still had to spend a certain amount of time practicing. The life planets they discovered had even been revived by the spiritual energy for a long time. But like now, when the time comes before the spiritual energy recovers, it will never happen again. Not only had he caught up with such an opportunity, Zhou would naturally not give up such a huge opportunity. He no longer had to worry about showing off or anything like that. He just calmed down and fell into the understanding of the rules of heaven and earth. Of course, after reaching the level of the Taoist God, he will definitely not just capture the Taoist charm that spreads out at the level of rules in the real world to understand the rules. At this time, Zhou's entire mind had entered the level of shallow rules, wandering in the endless ocean of rules. Taking advantage of the current changes in the rules, I can understand the various truths and mysteries involved. Suddenly, I don't know how much time has passed, but the brown earth people who have been on brown earth star for a long time have become accustomed to Zhou's existence, and have even continued their usual lives. However, everyone has another habit in their usual life, that is, when something goes wrong, they have to look up and see the figure that has always been standing in the sky. Even the brown earth stars have built starry battleships again and ascended into the starry sky. Although Zhou destroyed their starry sky base and various facilities laid out in the starry sky, the industrial system on the brown earth star was still intact. If they want to build a star battleship again, it is naturally not too difficult. Of course, even if they built a star battleship, they would not dare to approach Zhou. As for locking him with weapons again or attacking Zhou, they had never even thought about it. Although Zhou looks a little strange now, as if he has fallen into some strange situation, and seems to be unable to move for a while. However, they did not have any other ideas at all. Who can say clearly about the gods? Are you really sure he can't move, or is he doing it deliberately to lure them into a trap? Moreover, even if he didn't do this on purpose, could their brown earth star weapons really hurt him? Last time, the god only directly destroyed all their warships, bases, and other facilities stationed in the starry sky, but did not directly kill the people inside. But again, they are not sure whether that god, that higher being, will still not harm them. They didn't dare to bet on Zhou's behavior. Because if they win, they may not cause any harm to Zhou. And once they lose, it is possible that the entire civilization will be ruined. The emperor and a group of ministers had not thought of leaving the brown earth star in a battleship, or even taking the entire civilization with them to migrate. But, the starry sky is vast, where can they go? Without specific coordinates of the living planet, they would just get lost in the vast starry sky. Not to mention, with their current technology, they can just travel within the galaxy, but as for interstellar voyages, they still have some difficulty. Even if the coordinates of the living planet really exist, they may not have reached the halfway point, and most of the people will be dead. I'm afraid only a few will be able to reach it in the end. But the most important thing is Zhou. Although Zhou made no other moves after arriving outside the brown earth star. But once they want to stay away, who knows how he will react? Moreover, judging from Zhou's current performance, it seems that he will not do anything to them. Naturally, they are even more incapable of having such a firm idea of migrating. Things remained at a stalemate until Zhou woke up. Feeling the increasingly stable cultivation in his body and the improved state again, Zhou couldn't help but nodded with satisfaction. Then he looked around and saw the starships that had taken off again but had no intention of escaping, as well as the brown earth stars who were praying and kneeling from time to time. Zhou couldn't help but nodded slightly, and finally he wasn't too stupid. But Some people's actions were not so satisfactory to him. Unconsciously, Zomyu looked towards a place on the brown Earth star. There, two groups of people were confronting each other, and the divine power and spiritual energy fluctuations were fighting against each other, causing ripples in the surrounding space. Al, give up resistance. The true God is watching us from above. You can't escape. One day you will be suppressed by us. Humph. It's not certain who will suppress whom in the end. What kind of true God is that? It's simply an evil God. The righteous God will eventually come, will expel the evil God, and judge all heretics. The heretics who betrayed the glory of the gods will eventually be judged by the gods. After a mouth cannon, the atmosphere between the two sides gradually condensed, and the fluctuations of divine power became more obvious. Finally, boom! A dozen people on both sides burst out their divine power and rushed towards each other. At the same time, one after another sharp light fell. The source of power of these gods' followers seems a little strange. With a glance, Zomyu had already seen the status of everyone. One side belonged to his followers, and the other side, naturally, belonged to another god. As for the power used by both sides, it was exactly the power of him, Zomyu, and another god, mixed with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 451. When he was feeling the changes in the rules of heaven and earth, Zomyu had already felt that someone resonated with his power and wanted to borrow his power. As for who it was, Zomyu naturally knew it well. Apart from those followers who were influenced by his power and high-dimensional information, there was no one else. And Zomyu did not stop it. To be honest, it was the first time for Zomyu to use his own power information to influence other life. Inevitably, he was a little curious and had a little closeness. After all, they were also his followers, right? Therefore, Zomyu did not stop the military minister and others from praying to borrow his power. Naturally, Zomyu was not surprised that they could use the diluted and weakened divine power. However, he was a little curious about the other group of followers of another god who could also use divine power. After all, not everyone was as bored as himself, and agreed to let his followers borrow his power because of curiosity. Under normal circumstances, the power used by the god's followers also seems to be divine power. But in fact, it is just some power that is stained with the divine aura, but it cannot be considered divine power. Of course, the most important reason is that the divine aura used by Yuan Meng's power followers seems to be of the same source, but is very different. Say hello. Zomyu, who noticed something strange, couldn't help but look weird, and whispered in a hesitant tone. Well, just say hello. The next moment, Zomyu's eyes had bloomed with brilliant divine light, and he looked at the power followers of Yuan Meng below. Immediately, a scene that ordinary people could not see appeared in front of Zomyu. One after another, some were blood-red light, some were black light like silk, and some were light that stood thousands of feet high, entangled and condensed into a small ball. These are the result of life being infiltrated by high-dimensional power information, and there is nothing strange about it. Then, there were faint regular silk threads floating from those people's bodies, gathering together in the air, and finally disappearing into the void above. It's not completely fused. Isn't this really a god? Or, are these twin gods? Sin. Sin. What nonsense are you talking about? If people know that I'm gossiping behind people's backs, it's inevitable that they will be caught. What's more, even twin brothers will embark on their own paths after reaching the level of gods. Even if they are of the same origin, or even the same rules of the Dao, and practice the same secret magic skills, there will be great differences. When transcending the level of gods and reaching the realm of true immortals, everything about oneself, including power, information, etc., will be integrated into one's own Dao fruit. There will be no more sayings of the same origin. Thinking in his heart, Zhou Mu's sight did not stop, but followed those rule threads, sank into the void, crossed the dimensional barrier, and entered the level of shallow rules. Could it be that this person has entered the rule dimension? Zhou Mu was surprised again. After all, after becoming a god, they can also enter the rule dimension. However, facing the vast and endless rule oppression and the impact of endless information, they must ensure their high concentration at all times. If they are not careful, their minds will be impacted and drowned by the endless information, and even if they are not dead, they will suffer heavy damage. Therefore, when people usually comprehend the rules, they mostly use their minds to integrate into the rules that match them, comprehend the various changes in them, the basic structure of the rules, etc. At most, they take their own rules as the core, comprehend the rules connected to them, and use them to make up for their own shortcomings. Therefore, when Zhou Mu saw that the rule thread, after entering the void, did not cross the space and connect to another god, but entered the rule level, he was so surprised. But in the next moment, something even more surprising happened, because those rule threads, after entering the rule level, did not connect to a certain god. Instead, they directly sank into a large group of messy thoughts that were vaguely consistent with the rules. These chaotic thoughts seemed to be gathered together, but in fact they were faintly divided into several parts. Or turned into a bloody swamp, or a group of deep dark tentacles squirmed and twisted into a ball, etc. Waves of rule fluctuations merged with it, merging into various strange rule forces, that is, the power of the gods, along the rule thread immersed in it, directly flowing down, pouring into the body of the gods and spirits in the real world. Such a situation made Zhou Mu stunned on the spot. After he carefully explored and studied for a while, he vaguely understood it. This should be a god who was seen by the life on this planet, so he was immersed in its power and breath and became a god and spirit, so he developed a pious belief and admiration for it. But it is obvious that this god does not buy this, but strips off and isolates all these random thoughts and emotions that converge on him. But why did he deliberately throw these random thoughts to this rule level? People like them who achieve gods according to the rules are not like those who believe in gods, who will be affected by the beliefs of believers, etc. If they don't want to, any beliefs, any distractions, emotions, etc., will not reach their side at all, and will be annihilated by the power they instinctively emit. Could it be? Looking at the distractions and wills that have been faintly in line with the rules and differentiated into several different existences, Zhou Mu had some bold guesses in his heart. Could this person want to create a few evil gods of faith? Thinking of that possibility, Zhou Mu shuddered. This is really a ruthless person. However, what does this have to do with him? Just to be honest, these aliens still have grievances with him. As for Zhou Mu's bold guesses, Yuan Meng, who had just walked out of the origin space, couldn't help but curl his lips. Who said that it must be thrown from reality to the rule space? Couldn't it be thrown down from a higher rule dimension? The fact is naturally not the case, but Zhou Mu has never thought about it in that direction. Entering a higher dimension of rules is an existence beyond ordinary gods. Anyway, among the people he knows, no one can reach this level. Pangu may be able to do it, but he only descended with a trace of divine thought. In addition, in the Blue Star world, the suppression of the rules of heaven and earth, even Pangu would find it difficult to enter the deep level of rules. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 452. To be honest, the rule dimension of the Blue Star world is extremely repulsive and repressive to the gods and powerful beings from other worlds such as Pangu. Google search reading. Even if Pangu and others, if they are essentially from Yuan Meng, they are also from the Blue Star world. However, with the repeated promotion of the Chaos Primordial world, this difference is constantly increasing. Especially the Chaos world, which has the true void characteristics, after the Primordial world is truly promoted to the same level as the Blue Star, this difference has undergone a qualitative change. This is also the reason why the divine projections of the gods are still active within the range of spiritual energy even now. Because the essence of their power has exceeded the upper limit allowed by the rules of the Blue Star world, when they leave the range of spiritual energy, they will be suppressed by the rules of the world of the Blue Star world. As for breaking through the rule level, the dimensional barrier between reality and entering the rule dimension, even in the area covered by spiritual energy, they will still be extremely targeted and suppressed, unless Yuan Meng deliberately controls it. Obviously, Yuan Meng would not do so. He could still do so in Blue Star, but what about other worlds? When Yuan Meng was ready, he would eventually let these heavenly venerables go out, face the void world alone, and conquer other worlds. Now, it was all for them to get familiar with the mode. So Pangu and other heavenly venerables could only endure the rejection of the rules of heaven and earth, and enter the rule level with difficulty. While feeling the difference in the rules, they were also constantly looking for ways to avoid the rejection of the rules of heaven and earth. As for going deeper into the rule dimension, they basically couldn't do it unless they could go further. Or they could avoid the suppression of the world rules and enter the deeper rule dimension when they encountered the world of ours, which had been destroyed by disasters and only had the power to maintain the balance of the world's instinctive operation. Because of these reasons, Zhou never thought that the group of distractions that were about to form a belief in evil gods would be thrown down from a higher level of rule dimension. Zhou only thought that the source gods of those gods' followers deliberately integrated the distracting thoughts and faith power into the rule dimension to breed evil gods. When thinking of this, Zhou hesitated for a moment, but finally did not disperse it. Anyway, even if there are evil gods born, the ones who are harmed are the aliens on this planet. For the Pan-Human Alliance, these evil gods born by people's faith-distracting thoughts are really nothing. In the Pan-Human Alliance, any existence who walks out of the Dao can easily suppress it. Although it is a bit funny that Zhou thinks too much, Yuan Meng has no intention of explaining it to him. Even at this time, Yuan Meng has no intention of staying here. Because, in the chaotic world, someone is already preparing to create the world and evolve the world. As the second person to create the world in the chaos, and the chaos that has evolved again, Yuan Meng naturally has to pay attention to it all the time. Well, when necessary, he may not be able to help secretly. After all, opening the sky is a merit. Moreover, it can also make the chaos further perfect and evolve. He has been waiting for a long time to create the world and evolve the world. As for the things after the Blue Star world, the expansion of spiritual energy, etc., let them develop freely. And looking at the current situation of the Pan-Human Alliance, there is no need for Yuan Meng to intervene or help. He glanced at Zhou, who had already withdrawn his probing eyes and landed on the brown Earth star and was negotiating with the Emperor of the Empire. Yuan Meng withdrew his descending divine thoughts and returned directly to the Chaos world. In a magnificent palace on the brown Earth star, Zhou shook his head slightly. He felt as if someone was looking at him just now. However, when he used his mind to perceive, he found nothing, so he could only give up this idea and thought that he was overthinking. Then, Zhou returned to the matter in front of him again. He wanted to discuss with the ruler of this empire about building an interstellar teleportation array, establishing diplomatic relations with the Pan-Human Alliance, and even joining it. The final result did not surprise Zhou. With the power he had shown before, there were almost no obstacles, or even no obstacles at all. Zhou easily got the Emperor of the Empire and many ministers to agree to build an interstellar teleportation array on this brown planet. As for what happened after the array was built, the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two civilized countries, etc., that was not something Zhou needed to care about. Anyway, with the power comparison between the two sides, the Pan-Human Alliance would definitely not suffer. Therefore, after the interstellar teleportation array was built, Zhou only sent back a message, explained the situation here a little, and got up and left the planet. Although it was the first time to see such a high-tech alien civilization, Zhou was only curious for a while and did not intend to stay and take a closer look. After all, this was a civilization that could be easily destroyed by himself, and it was not much different from the sandbox games he played when he was a child. What's more, the current Blue Planet Pan-Human Alliance has a technological level far beyond that of this civilization. Well, although there are many reasons for the integration of cultivation techniques, the Pan-Human Alliance can be called an interstellar civilization anyway, and it is the top interstellar civilization. Crossing the galaxy and shuttling between the life planets within the territory, there is no need for transportation tools such as warships and spacecraft. Instead, it directly builds a space transmission channel, which is really a 1-second arrival. So, although the current brown Earth star civilization can be regarded as an extremely advanced technological civilization, however, they have not even stepped out of their own galaxy. It can be said that to some extent, they are not yet a true interstellar civilization. So, this is naturally not very attractive to Zhou. If you really want to attract him now, the technological level of civilization must at least involve the level of rules to a certain extent. So Zhou left. He didn't even meet his relatives. Well, or he had already met them, and it was a deep-level analysis type of meeting, so there was really no need to meet face-to-face again. After Zhou left, the Emperor of the Empire and many ministers breathed a sigh of relief. They had finally sent this person away. Standing by his side was too stressful. The Journey of Creation from Fantasy to Reality. Author, Get a Spark. Chapter 453. After watching Zhou disappear, the Emperor and his ministers turned to look at the teleportation array built on the central square of the Empire. Google search reading. They sighed helplessly and could only temporarily send their soldiers to monitor it. As for sabotage, they didn't have the courage. However, as soon as their orders were issued, the teleportation array was already lit up, with rays of light. Finally, it turned directly into a pillar of light that had already rushed out of the atmosphere. Runes lit up and kept wandering in the pillar of light. Such a teleportation array can not only connect the two spaces at the location of the array, but also all places above and below the pillar of light can be teleported across spaces. In other words, if necessary, they can also teleport to each other in space. This sudden change in the teleportation array immediately made the Emperor of the Empire and many ministers change their expressions in an instant, and they looked at each other in bewilderment. As for the situation here, the people outside naturally saw it, and they all gathered here. Of course, it was impossible for them to get close to the teleportation formation, and they couldn't even get close to the central square, and they were intercepted by many soldiers. In a short period of time, the periphery of the central square of the empire was already surrounded by 3 layers of people. From a distance, it looked like a flowing swamp. Just as everyone was looking at the sky-high light column, the scene that shocked the Emperor of the Empire, many ministers, and the onlookers happened again. I saw a series of human figures flying out of the light column, passing through a series of brilliant lights, and suspended in the surrounding sky. But in a moment, the surrounding sky was already filled with suspended Pan-Human Alliance warriors. Each of them was mighty and fierce, and the cultivation of any one of them was at the peak of the 5th level of immortality, and they could easily enter and exit the Qingming and travel across the Starry Sea. After all, this is the first intelligent civilization discovered by humans. The Pan-Human Alliance naturally attaches great importance to it and directly dispatched the strongest combat force of the 3rd echelon in the current alliance. The effect is also very strong. The emperor and many ministers of the empire, who were just celebrating that they had sent away a plague god, have completely given up. Everyone's face became extremely gloomy, but they had to force an ugly smile and look at the human floating in the air. Just one person is enough to completely destroy their civilization, and now, so many people have come, so they naturally have no more resistance. In the current situation, they can only pray that the pan-human alliance will not be too harsh. The faces of the emperor and many ministers of the empire have indeed become extremely ugly. But the people around them did not think so. They all looked surprised and yearning. Surprised that all these humans could fly, as if they were very similar to the god. And what they yearned for was whether they could also learn such abilities after the empire joined the pan-human alliance, and be able to fly in the future. Well, when Zhou built the interstellar teleportation array, the emperor of the empire had already publicized Zhou's origins and the fact that the empire would join the pan-human alliance in order to please Zhou. Although many people in the sects were disappointed that Zhou's identity was not the only one, or one of the very few gods. But they were also very happy to be able to join the pan-human alliance, such a powerful human force. After all, devoutly believing in other gods and praying for the gods to bestow divine grace is not worth mentioning compared to being able to become a god. Which is better or worse, it is clear at a glance, and normal people will know how to choose. So most people have long been looking forward to joining the pan-human alliance. Therefore, after the onlookers were shocked for a moment, they immediately burst into cheers to welcome the arrival of the envoy from the pan-human alliance. This is too enthusiastic. It scared me and almost slapped me. Looking at the crowd below who had no idea that they were almost slapped to death, they still burst into waves of thunderous cheers. The human floating in the sky couldn't help but complain to others. Hee hee. Everyone laughed when they heard it. Shut up. This is our first time to go to an alien civilization. Be serious. Seeing that everyone was serious on the surface but happy inside, the captain of this team immediately shouted loudly. Yes. Captain. After being scolded, everyone instantly restrained their inner laughter. They naturally knew the importance of this mission for themselves and others. Suddenly, everyone's expressions became more solemn, and a cold and solemn aura radiated from the sky. In an instant, the cheers of the crowd stopped abruptly, and the cold-looking humans in the sky felt that their breathing became heavy, and they felt like they couldn't breathe. Could it be that this pan-human alliance was not as open-minded as that person said? Didn't he say that as long as their brown Earth Star Empire can join the pan-human alliance and follow some of the rules, they will receive the treatment and protection they deserve? So what's going on? By directly sending so many powerful beings to come, is it necessary to completely absorb their country? Facing the cold-looking people, the emperor and the others couldn't help but feel their hearts beat, and a sense of despair gradually filled their hearts. But it was obvious that the emperor and many ministers were simply overthinking themselves. After all the soldiers of the pan-human alliance stood still, a person slowly walked out of the teleportation beam. After looking around, he immediately walked towards the emperor. As he walked, the man smiled brightly and greeted the emperor. This must be the emperor of the Brown Earth Star Empire. I am Xuanhuan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Pan-Human Alliance. After seeing Xuanhuan's bright smile, the emperor and all the ministers secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that things were not as bad as everyone thought. In fact, this was indeed the case. When the emperor expressed his willingness to join the pan-human alliance, Xuanhuan was very happy. And it has been repeatedly stated that as long as the empire can abide by some rules and regulations of the pan-human alliance and jointly safeguard the honor and interests belonging to all members of the pan-human alliance, then the pan-human alliance will not only send a large number of personnel to the Brown Earth Star Empire to help the empire develop and embark on the path of true evolution. It will also divide the empire into many living planets, help the Brown Earth Star Empire, and relocate the people of the empire to settle on those living planets.